many researchers and practitioners working from the 19th century up to today to reverse the effects of racism on health disparities, especially those experienced among African Americans. We have seen how racism works on an institutional level via the limited access, if any, that African Americans had to medical centers of any kind, with segregation structures keeping blacks out of hospitals until the hospitals face the potential of restrictions on federal funds, and with health clinics becoming available in the South only after visionary federal leaders skirted customs that call for the approval of white elected officials. But as these glaring and indeed outrageous causes of health disparities have ended, health disparities remain. Public health researchers have shown how these disparities arise from personally mediated and institutional obstacles in nearly all areas of life, not explicitly identified with health. And because health disparities arise from the combined impact of disadvantages and insults in so many areas of life, policy and institutional actions are not in themselves sufficient to eliminate the disparities. The review of progress, the review of progress of 2010 objectives found that among 169 objectives with data for race and ethnic groups, health disparities decreased for only 27 objectives and increased for 25, essentially a draw. Racism remains a fundamental challenge to public health, a challenge which we must continue to confront. But there's no simple solution to this pervasive, deeply rooted problem, so multiple avenues must be pursued. One requisite strategy that we've discussed already is to stop using race to define people. Almost all population groups in America now define themselves in terms of history, culture, and values, i.e. ethnicity. However, many African Americans today accept being defined by skin color, meaning defined by race. I'm struggling with what to do with the 2020 census because I'm going to declare my race as human. The racial and ethnicity diversity of the U.S. population is increasing along with growth in both percentages of marriages between spouses of different ethnicities and of babies who are multiracial or multi-ethnic. These shifts are changing the facts on the ground of U.S. demography. By 2000, the size of the Latinx population matched that of the black population, and the size of the Asian American population had surpassed that of Native Americans, changes that will become even more marked by 2050. The first step for public health professionals is to prepare for the effects of these demographic shifts. The shifts will not necessarily weaken racism, but they will change its dynamic from one that in much of the 20th century, the national discourse had been regarded as primarily white versus black to a more complex mosaic. Unless real progress can be made in improving the absolute and relative early life and educational preparation for lowest status groups, the very different socioeconomic profiles of various racial and ethnic groups may lead to a society which, roughly speaking, white and Asian Americans constitute an upper class, and African Americans, American Indians, Latinx Americans a lower class, multiracial, multi-ethnic persons occupying an intermediate class. A second basic strategy is to deepen our understanding of the basis for which racism and generally of harmful social behavior. Competition between people and groups is a fundamental aspect of biology and society, but so is cooperation. And broad-minded people realize that their own well-being is affected by the well-being of all. When white people experiencing economic deprivation and insecurity see other groups like blacks, Latinx, and immigrants as a threat, that's deplorable. but understandable. But do we understand why white people of means are also driven by racism? Do we understand what differentiates people who take account of others' well-being and pursuing their interests compared to people who are either unmindful or even okay, I'm good. And I think I'm going to the basics. The third basic strategy is to seek ways to reduce exposure to racism, to increase people's resilience in the face of racism, and to dissipate the toxic stress and other negative consequences of personal experiences. The most useful approach have individual and environmental effects. The Quiet Time program provides an example. Many African American and other ethnic minority youth attend schools with high concentrations of poverty in high crime neighborhoods and other stigma. Teachers must devote an inordinate amount of attention to behavioral problems. In response to these problems, over a decade ago, San Francisco Public Schools introduced the Quiet Time program, in which children, teachers, and staff practice transcendental meditation at the start and end of each school day. Extensive data collected from San Francisco suggests that the program has led to reductions in fighting and other disciplinary problems, improvements in attendance, and gains in academic performance. Randomized trials among teachers and administrators observed decreased burnout and emotional exhaustion, decreased psychological distress and anger, and increased emotional intelligence. Although TM is an individual behavior, collective practice of TM produces efforts on the group by reducing provocations, disruptions, hyperactivity, and promoting an environment that is more conducive to learning. There are numerous published studies suggesting mental health, cardiovascular, and other benefits from TM, including reduced social conflict in communities in which a stabilized fraction of the population practices TM leads to improvements in health. We are not suggesting that practices such as TM can eliminate racism or its adverse health effects, but the experience to date suggests that programs like Quiet Time can make an important contribution. And now I'm going to, this is my last page. Now I want to add to the content of the chapter by reminding this audience of the importance of policy changes that specifically address dismantling racism. These changes must occur at the federal and state levels as well as in health institutions. APHA needs to continue to generate federal policy proposals and model state-level proposals. My colleague, Vijay Hogan, and I think that institutions need to develop formal equity planning processes and have the tools to evaluate their institutional progress toward achieving equity. With the maturity of the public health field, the growing diversity of the United States, and the increasing awareness of potentially effective efforts against health disparities, we're in a position to make strong progress in diminishing the power of racism on health status. Much of the effort of the past was on dismantling corrosive and oppressive institutions while building a more inclusive cadre of leadership that could devote their careers to reducing health disparities. This work brought with it more resources, graduate programs, funding, and professionals who specialize in public health and health disparity. The progress also means that now there can be an open recognition that racism has been and is the central culprit of health disparities. Now that we acknowledge the situation of public health literature, matters continue the work of eliminating the effects of racism on health, work that has been in action for years, although not always directly acknowledged as such. Thank you. So now the floor is open to questions and comments, and I really want to encourage all of you to speak your mind.
presentation reminded me that I was with Bill at Morehouse. And I was one of the people who were handing out the position paper on Tuskegee as part of the drum. I think it was called the drum.
Yes.
And so
Find copies of it anywhere.
I have met Bill in 3 different eras. And the first time I met him, really, he was more of a mau-mau than an epidemiologist. But he retained that spirit throughout his professional academic life. And then I met him again at CDC with you and Helene, and we had sort of that after-hours black group that got together.
Social health society.
Yeah, this is a very beautiful man, and I'm so glad that he impacted my life.
Thank you. Yeah.
Hi. I just want to say, so hi, my name is Candy Logan. I'm current president of SAFI, Society for the Analysis of African American Public Health Issues. And Dr. Rowley, this presentation for me was incredibly meaningful in that I think sometimes some of us newer SAFI folk don't really understand the full history and implications of SAFI. And I think that's one thing that we as an organization, I know some of our board members are in here, are really trying to do and work toward is having people to fully understand why SAFI was created, why we exist, and why we persist. And so this for me needs to be part of like an orientation to become a SAFI board member. And I don't say it lightly. I'm being really serious about it because we have a lot of discussions about who we are, who we should be. And over the last few years, I think we have gone through a process of trying to kind of figure out and actually really fighting with who we are, for better or for worse. I think Saturday was a testament to what you all had created. And I think for me, again, I've never considered myself to be a researcher. I'm not an epidemiologist. I'm just a girl who went to a PWI and saw all of the people at the HBCUs, and I wanted to be one of them. And SAFI was my way to be a cousin in that space. But again, as president, moving forward, I just want to say that, I think we need help. I think your book, when you said it sold out, my heart sunk, but I'm going to go find it. I was going to take it off, or I was just going to take it off the table. Dr. That's what my plan.
There's an electronic version you can download.
So what I want to say is policy is something that we have consistently talked about being really involved in, and we need help. Some of us are still very young in the profession. We don't really know or have the guidance. And I'm not asking for people to join the board, but I am asking for people to help advise and guide us. In the same way that Bill and Kamara helped guide the development of this book. And so whatever we can do to get back to that space of where we are being actionable about the work that we're doing, that's where I'm hoping that people will be willing to lean in and help us do that. My only regret is that I didn't get the opportunity to be directly mentored by Bill, but I think that in his passing, the greatest gift has been the opportunity to be mentored by those who were mentored by him. So I just want to say thank you, and thank you all who have reached out and been supportive of SAFI, who have adopted the PWI cousin, and now I feel like I'm a full-fledged HBCU graduate, but I'm still working on it. But I just want to let you know that we are committed to getting back to the basics and the foundation of what SAFI is so that we can advance the work that is being done. So I just wanted to say thank you.
I would like to follow up, Sandy, on what you're saying, because SAFI has, members of SAFI have written many APHA policies. I remember in 2000, there was the policy on racism as a root cause of ethnic disparities in health outcomes. And Sonia, so a group of us, and I sort of led that one, and then Sonia Hutchins led another one in that same year. And so SAFI has had a history of engaging in the APHA policy process, so I think that's a good thing. I also wanted to stand and say something, so Bill preceded me in so many ways, and even the day before he passed, I was able to call and thank him for that in the many ways in APHA and the American College of Epidemiology. Like he was a trailblazer, but I also want to say that none of us is fully formed. Like, so the bill that at the end and the presentation is the version that was the last version of Bill, you know. But there were many versions, and if he were still with us, and I think he's with us now, there would be an evolution. So I think that what we need to do is engage actively with each other in the area of ideas, because I remember many years arguing with Bill, whether it was culture or